I'm not sick or struck dumb, or don't you know a kick when you see one can't quit? We're not done, we're gonna kick till the next one.
Hello, fine people, and welcome to The Kick. This is a theme, scheme, and year-clearing movie podcast on the Now Playing Network. I am your host, Chance Solon Pfeiffer. And right now, we're on a 2024 kick. Some of my favorite guests are bringing to the table the movies from this nearly complete year that they can't stop thinking about, can't stop reflecting on, found in a pile of screeners and just fell in love with. Today on The Kick, we're discussing My Old Ass. It's a funny, heartfelt, sideways coming-of-age story starring Maisy, Stella, and Aubrey Plaza. They play the same character, Elliot at 18 and Elliot at 39, and they meet each other when the teenage version of this character takes a heroic dose of shrooms in the weeks before she leaves her rural Ontario family farm for college in the big city. Here to discuss My Old Ass, and he nominated it. It's a writer for Portland institutions like the Mercury and Willamette Week. He is a member of the Portland Critics Association. Ray Gill Jr., welcome back.
Hey, how are we doing, Chance?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for being here. Would you just start with the obvious question? Why is this your movie of the year?
Wow, I love this question. Well, this one kind of snuck up on me. I think it did for most people. And
Same.
That's definitely going to have an impact on you when something obviously surprises you and you're not looking for it to have an impact. But just those things that I give it the bottle rocket effect, right? So I discovered both a filmmaker and an actor that I think I want to follow for a long time. Megan Park, I hadn't heard of before. The Fallout had gotten some buzz, but it's one of those ones that, hey, I'll get to and never got to. I think that happens a lot when you're doing film criticism because you just get diluted with so many films that sometimes that one that you want to get back to doesn't come around again until maybe you take a vacation, which the last thing you want to do maybe is watch a movie. So I kind of forgot about that one. And then I didn't even know that Jenna Ortega was in that one, which is so interesting to see what Megan Park's eye is for talent, because the other thing that stood out for me, again, as I said, was an actor I want to follow, which would be Maisy Stella. This young actress just blew me away in the way that I think a few others have maybe about a decade or two earlier. When I think of people like a Haley Steinfeld, Jennifer Lawrence, young actors who have something more than just the precociousness to be maybe more like an Anne Hathaway, who I bet was just the ultimate theater kid, probably got the starring role in every play, just the perfect star. You can just see her getting the role in Ella Enchanted and Princess Diaries and on and on. She was born to be on, and no one was shocked when she was in Les Mis. You're like, duh.
Right.
Of course she can sing and do everything. But a girl like this and who's just kind of more natural and isn't going to get by with that precociousness without it being natural. And be able to get that on screen and identify it, first of all, because she must have identified it with Jenna Ortega, because with The Fallout, I believe that might have been Jenna Ortega's first feature film.
Right. I kind of summed it up a little bit already, but you've got the Maisy Stella character, you've got Elliot. Her family has this cranberry bog farm in the Muskoka Lakes, which is, I guess, like a series of kind of interlocking lake islands and such in rural Ontario. And it kind of movie opens with this really interesting, you could say it's movie magic, but it also found it to be like an interesting comment on just like when you're 18 or whatever and confidence can take you seemingly anywhere you want to go. She's like riding up on this boat with her two friends, and she's like, I've always been flirting with this girl since we were in elementary school, and I just want to like walk in there and see if we can, consummate the thing. And they sure do. Like, it works just like that. So it's just sort of like everything's coming up Elliot. She's ready to move on to this bigger life, go to a university in Toronto. And then, as a send-off, the three three friends decide to trip together, go out to an island, take a bunch of shrooms, and that's where Elliot is confronted with her older self, played by Aubrey Plaza. And I think maybe we sort of spoil this gradually, Ray, because the one thing I knew about the movie was people were like, oh, the third act is different, there's something, like, be on the lookout. And of course, when you have that news, you watch a movie differently. But the one thing that Aubrey Plaza's character, older Elliot, who goes in the phone as my old ass, says, stay away from someone named Chad, is basically the instigating advice of the movie, and it kind of unfolds from there. Chad turns out to be someone who works on the family farm. He's the summer hand who's hired on, and is played by, speaking of Jenna Ortega, it's Percy Hines White, who was on Wednesday with her, the Netflix show, and they meet, and Elliot begins to be like, so what's so wrong with Chad? And maybe I'll stop the synopsis there. But do you think there's anything else that people should know about, like, maybe the first quarter to understand the movie, Ray?
Well, I mean, you're going to get your essential elements to meet cute.
Yeah.
You don't get much of the creativity that you're going to get or that's within the storytelling at the beginning. We're just meeting these people, but it's so quaint and so nice how we get introduced to these, first a group of girls, crashing the boat into a pier and awkwardly trying to, just talk to someone that you like.
Yeah.
The sheer terror of talking to someone that you like when you're 18 is kind of a fun thing to reflect on now that I no longer have to do that.
I thought I'd be happier at 40.
You are happy, and I'm not 40, asshole.
You don't look happy. I feel like you're having a midlife crisis.
Well, I feel like you're high on mushrooms, so you don't know shit.
To Elliot.
No, not the whole bag.
May you experience a new level of consciousness tonight.
Oh my God. Are you guys tripping? I don't feel anything.
That's because we don't tolerate drugs well.
Hey, freak.
Who are you?
Elliot. Dude, I'm you.
You're me.
What's up?
I don't have a gap in my teeth.
Yeah, wear your retainer. Left boob, 1 cup smaller than the right.
I'm actually kind of hot for being middle-aged.
I'm 39 years old. That's not middle-aged.
No, that is middle-aged.
No, it's not. I am a very young adult.
I'm so jealous you guys had good trips.
Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Dude, I know mom can be annoying, but be nice to her. And go hang out with your brothers.
Ow, Max!
Also, can you avoid anyone named Chad?
Good morning, Elliot. Have you met Chad?
Elliot, you freak. I put my number in your phone the other night, but I did not know this would work. Wait a minute, hang on. Basement! Dude, I gotta go.
So I thought, and I'm curious if this holds any water for you, because you mentioned that this reminded you of some aughts. I think you called it a middle budget genre movie. But I thought a fair bit about Linklater. I mean, you kind of have the endless summer high school vibe, and then you also have this fascination with time and being in the right place at the right time and having a connection with someone that feels accidental and serendipitous. I don't know. Does that hold any water for you?
With Linklater, I get the connection with Dazed and Confused.
Yeah.
Is that where you're seeing a little bit of a connection?
For sure. I've thought a couple times about when she just like tears across the water in that boat. I'm like, well, this is the slow ride shot of the car on the highway.
There is that sense. I mean, because of the filmmakers, both Linklater and Park's affection for where they come from.
Yeah,
I think that gets translated into the films, and because they're so good at what they're doing, you're able to feel it as an audience member. So, with like, for instance, when we talk about Linklater and Days of Confused, I'm actually from that area, so yeah. I recognize so much of that. And Linklater is very Austin. I didn't come from Austin. I've been to Austin, but it's a very special unique part of Texas that has its own personality. And Linklater is able to capture a little bit of that, but he's able to catch a broader aspect of it with the kids in there in that time period and feeling like I'm ready for that next step. I'm ready to grow up. I'm ready for life. As Elliot even says, life to begin.
Yeah.
And that's how you feel when you feel almost stuck, not realizing I'm not stuck. I'm just taken care of. I'm not stuck. I'm actually just, developing. But feeling stuck is such a compounding feeling for someone so bountiful, full of energy and imagination, and who hasn't been, weathered by life at all. So you haven't heard no enough, to know that you can't do anything, right? And I think that's why the casting of Aubrey Plaza, though they look nothing alike, was so inspired. Is she looks like somebody around the age of a 39-year-old. Hold on, she says she's 39. Now she's a bit iffy about her age because I've known a few 39-year-olds that were 39 for about 3 or 4 years, and she seems like the kind of character that might.
Sure, that's a real precipice conversationally.
Yeah, that might not want to admit she might be 40, but that's fine. An older self, but she seems like someone who's kind of seen a little bit of life and is able to play it with a little bit of that weathered kind of melancholy that character specifically would have to have, that would actually cause a metamorphosis from this kind of bright-eyed kid that we're meeting at 18.
Which is really inspired casting because we are so used to seeing Aubrey Plaza play the chaos agent. That's the role she's become famous for. Like, even if she's playing it dour or downbeat, she's here to like fuck things up. And I guess you could say that older Elliot will do that in a plot sense, but it's really interesting to see the ways in which she as you say, weathered, like, and she's holding things back, and she's like, I want to tell you one thing, young Elliot, but I don't want to tell you how it goes. And you wonder how this, very bold, bright-eyed kid becomes like a more reticent person. But you're sort of waiting for Aubrey Plaza to have this big moment. And when she ends up having it, again, it's not big. It's like a small, profound moment. But I don't know if I
think in the film is big, which I like. And when you mention like movies that it connected to, with me specifically, it's almost like a reversal of character development wise of like Groundhog Day. So you think of, Bill Murray at the beginning of Groundhog Day being weathered, and then, he starts to appreciate all the little things. And I had a lot of just playing with time. And then, of course, I thought of Safety Not Guaranteed, just because of Aubrey Plaza.
Yep.
And then, and that's a kind of mid-budget, early 2000s sci-fi comedy,
totally
weird little genre where you can kind of play with it. Seems to have gone away. And I kind of had the thought that would make a really cool double feature if you ever watch Safety Not Guaranteed and then this back to back, just because thematically they kind of counterbalance one another.
Yes.
Because Safety Not Guaranteed is about time travel and going back in time and regret, where this one is more about youth being reckless and making those mistakes that you will end up regretting. I just find that really, really interesting. And then it's using the same muse, Aubrey Plaza, in both films. So that could be a lot of fun.
Great point. Do you consider this a time travel movie? There are ways in which it is in that genre, and ways in which you kind of step back and it's like, could it be classified more as like a dream or something? Because there's not like a lot of mechanics. That's one of the things I liked about it, is it's real light on like, so how does this happen? How does it all work? How many times can they meet? I love that the movie doesn't care about that shit.
Right. Yes. That's just like Groundhog Day. I mean, it kind of lets us go on the journey with the characters without the overcomplicated device of this convoluted explanation to get me there.
Yes.
It's just about buy-in.
Totally. And by just being there, that's when you like start to read yourself and your life into it and kind of like ask the big questions. And so I guess let's get to some big questions. What do you think this movie has to say about regrets and the ignorance of youth, Ray?
Well, I mean, it's a real champion of youth. It's a real champion of being, I guess, like I mentioned earlier, not hearing no enough, of being able to go out there and just think you can do things that you can't, and along the way end up accomplishing things you didn't even know you wanted to. There's a quote once I heard that always stuck with me. I'm going to bastardize it, but the sentiment's there where it goes, I always try to remember myself when I wanted the things I currently have. And it's just an interesting idea about always striving for something, and then the pitfalls along the way of regret, of getting what you want and realizing you don't actually want it, and then all this obsession with the conclusion and not the journey. And I just love the fact that this takes time to tell you to enjoy the journey, that it really does mean something to spend a little bit of time with your family that you might not have thought was valuable, spend a little bit of time in that hometown that, yeah, you're ready to move on from. But and this kind of brings me back to another film that I found a connection with, which was Lady Bird. We're dealing with an adolescent girl at a same point in their life who's so excited just to get out and do that next thing where we all know we're going to be great. And anything's got to be better than where we came from and the people that brought us here. And I love the way that this lets us take a second and simply reflect on it. And it does it with the beauty in the writing and in the characters. And you mentioned something earlier about the lack of special effects and whether I think of it as a sci-fi and an actual time travel movie. And I do, because I think you have to do the buy-in that the conclusion that Aubrey Plaza tells her about is actually an actuality, that, you know, because otherwise it takes the weight out of that final scene, or the cathartic third act scene between those two characters. So what I love is they're doing it without the CGI. They're doing it without any kind of technology. Like even Safety Not Guaranteed has a final act where you see the big time machine and everything, right? And I almost wish they hadn't done that. You could have made an inference to that, and it could have been really almost more powerful. But with this, it's so much of it is inference, and so much of the time travel and the aspects of whatever technology and sci-fi that we're used to is left to just not only our imagination, but is totally taken out of the film and uncomplicates it and just leaves it with the people and what they're saying and their connection.
That's part of I think the brilliant conceit of having it be a hallucination is that you have no idea the mechanism, how they're communicating over the phone, older and younger Elliot. And also, as someone watching it for the first time, I was like, maybe older Elliot's not coming back at all. Like, I don't know how this works. The movie is not tipping its hand.
And what a clever device, too. I mean, if you have a small budget, maybe have Aubrey Plaza for maybe, not that long a time, but you want to utilize her.
Yeah.
That's really smart. And I remember Megan, the filmmaker, was talking about the fallout. And when she first got funding for that film, and she was so excited, it's like, I got funding for $1 million to make my movie. And she found out real quick $1 million wasn't a lot of money.
Right.
But when you watch the final product, you see a filmmaker learning how to do very little, or how to do a lot with very little. And that seems like one of those devices where maybe originally she would have had, if it was a different actors, the person more present in the film. But because you probably can't afford Aubrey Plaza for that long or whatever. You're forced to use a different device, and I thought it was just really clever. Just like how they had to kind of write little explanations of why they don't look the same. Like, I know,
Yeah.
dude, wear your retainer. That's
Right.
hilarious. Like, it's really clever aspects of just using words and not other devices to tell your story.
Yeah. I really like the way that the movie, I really like scripts that are, I guess, manipulating you but getting away with it by sort of like leveraging what it thinks will be the audience's preferences or insecurities kind of against where it's actually going to go. So like maybe we just get into the whole like stay away from Chad of it all. You have this happy, interesting, smart, driven young woman who's only ever had relationships with young women and wants to go study in the big city. All of these kind of like 2024 aspirational things. Look how comfortable this girl is with herself. Look how much her family loves her. Look what she's going to go do. And the stay away from Chad of it all is kind of, the character's name's Chad, for God's sake. It's like a stereotype of like a lame white guy name. And so the whole deck is kind of stacked in favor of like, yeah, she should stay away from Chad. Like, what does she want to have anything to do with this guy for? And then I think credit to the Percy Hines White performance. He is just like, at every stage of every interaction, he kind of passes the charming, respectful, has his own good reasons for being here and working on this farm kind of thing. And so like gradually as she starts to move toward him, there is for me like tension as an audience member of like, should she follow the advice? Is she being very silly by just in a matter of 3 days curiosity, like having to go against this advice? I don't know, what dynamics did you like in the script?
Well, I definitely enjoyed the tension of the ambiguity of just a warning of stay away from Chad. Now, you mentioned earlier that you had somewhat of a warning that there might be a shaky ending, or the ending might affect you a little bit or not subvert your expectations.
That's right.
I kind of had that feeling just because Aubrey Plaza was in it. I didn't think that she would take a script unless there was going to be something deeper to it than just your average endless summer film. There's going to be something like I kind of had a skeptical eye the whole time, and I was kind of going dark with it, right? Like, who is this Chad? Like, where is this going? That's
100%. You like, one of the things that could happen is like, is Chad going to attack her? I mean, that's.
Thank you. Yeah.
Of course, exactly crossed my mind. Yeah, absolutely.
I really thought that was just an effective way to do it.
Yes, because you are like scrutinizing this person very hard.
Just like she is.
Yes, but the performance is charming. And yeah, I mean, I guess this is like a mini spoiler, but it's all, I guess that's also sort of what makes it an endless summer movie, is the way that time is passing and not passing, where it seems like she has spent like months agonizing whether or not she should get to know this person. And when older Elliot finally does reappear, she's like, you couldn't wait 4 days to
But isn't that interesting? Like when you're a kid, doesn't 4 days seem like forever though?
Especially if you're in just this moment of like peak catharsis. So the other thing about like leaving home and going to college is like, I think that's probably the first time for a lot of teenagers they've ever conceived of a time in their life ending, which creates this incredible resonance to the way time is passing.
And then the thing with Chad too, and I wanted to touch on this just a little bit because I found Chad to be almost the too perfect of a character.
Yeah.
Like the kid has no flaws. I mean, he's just a dorky looking kid.
Right.
But even that becomes endearing. But then I take a step back and I remember viewing this film through the aspect of how the filmmaker is remembering these people, remembering this place. It's all a little romanticized. It's all fantastical anyways. And so that makes sense that Chad would be a little fantastical. And then that brings to mind the criticism that I did hear from a film critic that I read who's a lesbian, and she talked about this being like a low-key conversion therapy film.
Sure.
And I absolutely get her point there. And
Yeah.
I thought that was such an important thing to at least bring up or think about, although not coming from that aspect, I don't. I feel her pain and understanding and wanting particular types of representation on screen, because myself, being an African American man, which might surprise people if you can only hear me because I don't sound like one, but its representation has been huge. And when you get so little of it, it carries a lot of weight. And this film isn't really meaning to carry that whole lot of water. So I get that sentimentality, because the lesbian relationship that she has in this film is just kind of transactional. You don't get to really know the other character that she has that relationship with.
Right.
But Chad is like really where the deep emotional relationship comes from, where the real and then she discovers herself through this relationship with a boy instead of, the girl.
Totally. I thought about that too. If this is the way the movie tilts away that makes me feel comfortable as a, straight guy or whatever. But yeah, I could see that. I do think there are these little things in the script though that like hold a lot of space for this character might be bi or pansexual in the future. There's some joke about Elliot says with my 3 wives and 3 kids. So I don't know if I totally buy the conversion therapy. I can see where that would be a pain point for someone watching the movie, but I think it's left pretty open intentionally.
Well, what I saw from my straight male point of view was that it was a great representation of seeing a character given space by the people around her to make that decision and find out for herself.
Yes.
Because she doesn't know. She's just an 18-year-old girl. She thought this, but nobody's pushing her. They're just, not even the boy. Like, the boy doesn't say anything when she admits, like, oh, yeah, like, if that happened back when I was younger, it would have had a very, very viscerally different reaction.
Yeah.
But here, it shows what I believe to be an evolution. Hopefully, it's not a fantasy. I don't know. I'm not living that young person's life anymore, but it played, like, I really liked the way that she was able to find out who she was.
Totally. And, this is not as profound as actual identity representation, but I had never seen a character in a movie say, I quote, I have never had dick sex before, and then a nice 18-year-old guy be like, do you want to have dick sex? Which is one of the best delivered lines in the movie, where it's like, yes, there's an incredible like openness and awkwardness of just like putting words to what kind of sex do you want to have.
Well, even Rose says at one point, the labels are only useful if they're useful to you, right?
Yes.
When she says that, yeah. And that is definitely a newer mindset to how I was raised, and something really interesting for me to hear. And I love that it was such a natural part of the film.
Maybe we talk about place a little bit before we kind of go into full spoiler territory, because you mentioned Megan Park is from this neck of the woods in Ontario, I believe. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this is not, I really like the ways in which this is not a sort of point and shoot the script kind of broad comedy. It's very specific to where it's set. What were your favorite or some standout elements of this Muskogee Lakes being a real place for you, Ray?
Yeah, I think you can see that Megan has a love affair with this place. There's the scene with the mother overlooking the shore, right? Or overlooking the lake. When they have what I think are one of the 2 scenes that make this film, that separates this film from a lot of films that might fall into a more similar kind of genre. the scene with the mother is so moving, and it's set up so perfectly by previous scenes of the mother trying to connect and just not getting there in a way that only a mother can, where they're trying to help, but you're just like, Mom, I got it, right? But a
Yeah.
mom is still trying to figure out, how do I be a mom to this kid that doesn't want a mom?
Yeah.
And that scene where it's made powerful because they're overlooking this place where they grew up, in this beautiful lake, and she's reminiscing about when she was a mom growing up, and she was crying and she wouldn't stop crying, and she just held her, right? I don't know if you've ever had this, but when I talk to my mom, especially now as she's getting older, she reminisces about those times, those times way back when I was younger that I don't remember. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier when Elliot said, I'm ready to get out of here for my life to begin. Well, that's so contrary to the mom who's thought her life up to this point has been the thing. Like, this has been her life. Like, her life was this kid's life, right? So, and now the character believes her life doesn't really begin until she gets away from this mother. And to have that moment, it made it made me well up because of the scenery, because it all came together well. And I think it was translated through the filmmaker being in that spot also. I think it all just worked.
And it is the perfect parable, that thing of like, to borrow the way in which you just put it, which I thought was great, that like inherent to being a parent is being right there for the gradual steps at which the person doesn't want you anymore. Like it's just like, I have to do this thing and it's so hard and I'm giving so much to this little being, and what an immense relief I will feel when I don't have to do this. But at every step of the process is the little being being like, don't need you, I'm good.
Taking you for granted, pushing you like that. That's kind of the connection to Lady Bird that I had.
Yeah.
Right? Because you felt that tension the whole time. And because of the women playing the roles of the mother, they're so good that I end up feeling for the mom. If you don't cast that right, and some of those deliveries come off a little bit different and not as authentic, I don't know if you feel for the mom as much. But because you're so on the side of the kid at the time, leading up to it, that the mother is kind of annoying and she's getting in the way of the story I want to see too.
Right.
But like, whoa, dude, take a second, man. We'll take a second from the whole story and go talk to this lady.
Yeah.
I thought that was really great. And yeah, I want to go back to that lady that plays the mom, because she only has a few scenes.
Yeah, that's Maria Dizia, to give her a shout.
There it is. Thank you. Yeah. And she is so, you can feel her reaching. Especially early on, trying to connect with this kid. And boy, if it doesn't make me think of my mom trying to connect with me. Like, there's a scene where she's goes into the bedroom where Elliot is, and he's like telling her about the weather, what the weather's going to be like. Like, yeah, I know, Mom. And she's like kind of just picking up mugs, randomly, trying to help. And I'm thinking at that moment, that's when young 18-year-old Ray's like, I got it, Mom, get out, I got this.
Yeah.
And no, I don't got this. I'm about to go off to freaking someplace I don't know, to go study some major I don't care about. I don't know what's going to happen. You're the one that knows all this stuff, and I'm not tapping into that resource. I just want you to go away, and I got this. I thought that was, and if the mothers don't play that well in the scenes that they have in both Lady Bird and this film, the endings don't work, and the arc of the relationship and the connection that I have and the way that it makes me feel about the film after it's done, when I see my dear sainted mom, it doesn't have the same effect. So I just want to give a shout out to that actress one more time.
Totally. Maria Dizia. And I think that brings me back to just to like, I love the things this movie didn't do. The whole time I'm almost just like clenching my hands being like, when are they going to do a self-reflexive, like, old Elliot says, like, oh, I can't tell you or else it'll change or else it'll be like a Back to the Future type thing. And they never say it. Mm-hmm. And instead, what's in there is actual screenwriting, where you are, as you saying, you're just like, Mom, stop talking about the weather. Get out of here. Get out of the movie. And yet, like, that is all braced up against, like, this motherly advice, which we're primed as the audience to be like, okay, well, this stay away from Chad is, like, is the wisdom that we should pay the most attention to. And I just love to act. Like, so seldom when you watch a movie am I actually like pulled on in two different ways, like, you know, wrenched in opposite directions by different characters and different wants and different motivations. Yeah.
Without feeling manipulated, right?
Without feeling manipulated. Yes. It's just, it's just playing with my allegiances in a way that I always like. It's not shoving me one specific way. So maybe should we spoil this puppy, Ray, and tell people to go watch it on Amazon and skip ahead 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's go ahead and go there.
All right. I kept thinking about skip ahead 5 minutes. You heard me. So Chad dies, and we don't know how. We don't know the circumstance. We don't know when. I did have this funny moment when I was like trying to figure out what the twist was, and they were boating together. I was like, "Oh, does he drown? Is that what's about to happen?" And that would have been kind of cheap. I'm glad that didn't happen. It's good that we don't see it. But I just kept thinking through my tears how amazing it was that this movie gets away with this. Like, it's pretty close to like a Nicholas Sparks movie, or like The Lake House, or some kind of like really, really sentimental rom-com about like characters who are communicating across time, and through some like magical element, like their love, they're able to keep talking, and like they know the pain of like what's going to happen, but it's worth it because love is worth it anyway. All these things were in a heavier handed movie, I would just be rolling my eyes into the back of my skull. And yet in this one, because of the way the information is doled out and how it's acted, I just thought it was the most profound shit ever. How did it strike you?
Yeah, I think you're able to maybe avoid the sappiness of that you were referring to earlier. With the two scenes I was kind of referencing, there's the scene with the mother, which has so much authenticity and heart to it.
Yeah.
And sets up so perfectly without you realizing it's coming. And then that ending where we find out what actually happened to Chad, and then the turn of the reaction to the advice coming from the person who hasn't even experienced it yet, coming from the younger person, coming from the person who has the uncertainty. The person with the uncertainty is never the person who gives the advice, but my God, does it work.
And I just have to give a shout to Aubrey Plaza's underplayed reactions in the scene where she actually sees Chad is the thing that sells it all for me. Of like, you see this person who's given the warning to young Elliot because whatever happened hurt old Elliot so profoundly, like it can't even be explained. And then they're like, okay, Aubrey, see this kid and just do it with a look. And that is, again, like a gear. Seeing her, I want to talk about Megalopolis and her performance in that, but like the polar opposite of like, let's just go. We've seen her go as big as she can possibly go this year, and now like just give me a tear at the right time, give me a hug that like goes on like longer than you think it's gonna go, and that's it. And also just like the structure of like relaying that information, because again, if this were like a movie where you find out that someone has like a terminal illness in Act 2 and the teenager's like, no, I'm gonna be with them anyway, it's just like, take your walk to remember over there. I don't give a shit. But the idea,
Fault in Our Stars, My Stars, whatever that was.
Exactly.
I didn't actually see that film, but I think it's probably something like that.
I think that's exactly what it is.
I think I saw the movie without seeing the movie. Yeah,
I think you did. But that slightly sideways notion of like, okay, think about the pain that you would spare yourself if you could, and then what would be different about your life if you tried to spare yourself that pain, and would you actually undo it? And I think it was very convincing and affecting that it's just like, no, the answer is no, because like experiences are everything. Like, have the experience.
There is some advice that the older Aubrey Plaza gives. Well, I guess the older Elliot gives to the younger Elliot that I thought was somewhat interesting. Now I'm going to throw this back to you, because you're a man who's experienced love. Is love really safety and freedom?
Safety and freedom at the same time.
Mhm.
Yes, that's how older Elliot describes healthy love.
Now, I don't know. See, I'm trying to suss out is because the younger Elliot seemed pretty unenthusiastic about that answer. Now, I don't know if that was supposed to be a real honest answer or just kind of the disappointing answer. Where are we with that?
Well, I think before I try to answer you, I also like, I think the way that a lot of the comedy in this movie just comes from teenagers' inability to receive any meaningful info without kind of like sounding like a little bit of a jackass. Where just older Elliot's pouring her heart out and younger Elliot just goes sick. Or she's talking to Chad and she's like, you're kind of like a good vibes person, and they just can't find the words. And if you've ever been around teenagers or remember what it was like to be a teenager, there were all these in the biggest moments of your life up to that point, you did not have the words. And when you're older, when you're older, you have the words, and that's where like a lot of the comedy comes from, of just like this little dweeb, but she knows stuff. She doesn't, just because she can't describe it in any kind of tactful way doesn't mean she doesn't know.
Something's going on with the older Elliot because there's all kinds of chaos going on in the background every time she calls.
Well, I was going to ask you, like, what was your favorite? You get these funny, so what's going on planet Earth in 2044 that we only get from the phone calls? Did you have any favorite nuggets there?
Well, yeah, there was okay, I think the best one was when all of a sudden these sirens started going off in the background.
Yeah.
And older Elliot is screaming, get in the basement, or basement. And then calmly gets back on the phone. It's like, yeah, I got to go. So she's screaming basement with the urgency of something dire happening, but then returns to say, yeah, I got to go. I'll talk to you later, with the subtlety of, well, but this happens all the time. Like, what is so horrible that you guys have just normalized it? Like, is it global warming? Is it the military? Is it like, well, probably not, but like, so that was really fun to kind of play with. But one of the funniest things, I don't know if this has something to do with the future or if it was just a little nugget they threw in there, but when she came back and she's clapping at the fireflies, I was like, what is the deal with these fireflies? And I'm like, what? It's like, it's not even firefly season. I'm like, firefly season.
As though they're maybe extinct or something in 2044? Or there's...
I don't know. Well, I just thought it was hilarious that she was just somewhere where all of a sudden there are these fireflies everywhere. And she's like, it's not firefly season. Is there a firefly season?
Like where I grew up in Nebraska, there definitely is. They come out in June and July and then they're gone.
Okay, because I tried to look that up and I just ended up reading a lot about a TV show I didn't watch. So.
You're well versed in Joss Whedon's Firefly now.
That's exactly what I read. Yes.
Yes. But yeah, I think those little nuggets are funny on their face, but also kind of thematically they work too, because it's just like, it's about the certainty of being 18 and how, like, of course you're wrong, of course everything's more complicated. And I took it to be like a Gen Z person being like, well, I've been told my whole life that climate change is here and the world is going to burn and ecology is going to collapse and everything's going to be over just like that. And and at the same time, I also have the piss and vinegar to be off like, I'm going to go to college and have this amazing one-of-a-kind experience. And of course, the answer is weirder than that like the degradation of like whatever we're in for in the next 20 years will be normalized on normalized on normalized to the extent where you 20 years from now would just be like, oh yeah, I forgot you didn't have that thing. It's not great, but it's what we got. And I thought that's what the phone calls were about. Ray, I think I did want to talk to you because last time you were here we talked.
Oh no, now I remember. I'm sorry. Before you go any further, we've got to talk about this one scene, right?
Tell me.
You know what I'm going to talk about.
Do I? Oh, the when of course at a certain point when older Elliot does not reappear, younger Elliot figures the only way to get my sage advice back here is to go trip again. And so she goes back to the island with Ro and is like, okay, give me the scraps of the Ziploc bag. Like, let's try this. I got more knowledge to get. And she doesn't get it. And instead what happens, right?
Well, instead she finds herself embodying Justin Bieber singing One Less Lonely Girl to Chad, who's dressed as, I would assume, the titular lonely girl.
Yeah.
And it's such a fun scene as they're doing this. And as I'm watching it, it kind of registered me just a little bit. I don't know how true this is. It might be the over analytical brain of a film critic, but you look at the movie and thematically what they're talking about is the younger self and the recklessness of your younger self putting you in situations and making you do things you wouldn't normally do, but you look back on and go, thank God I did. And I kind of look at that scene almost like a younger Megan Park saying, dude, you have all this power to make a movie. These people have to do whatever you say. Let's put the Justin Bieber scene in here. And then the older version being like, God, that's crazy. No, I've got the tone. I've got it all set. I'm not going to just do it Justin. Be like, come on. Right. And then she just went for it and did it. And it was totally out of place for the movie. And it worked. And it was so much fun. Like it was really a cool way to not only do the kind of bit where, when you have a dream and you want to try and fall back asleep and because you woke up too early, it kind of seemed like that, but you ended up instead singing Justin Bieber.
100%.
That's kind of what happened. Yeah.
Well,
so I just really enjoyed that.
Also, just talking about this movie's mastery of position of things in the script. If that was somehow how she did reconnect with older Elliot, it would feel like you used a pop culture joke to kind of heighten the beat that you wanted. But because it's just an abject failure, that's what makes it so much funnier. It's just a sideshow.
And then it's just thrown away in a conversation later with her friend Ro. Cut to that, and it's like, yeah. And then Bieber, it's crazy. It's like, yeah, that was crazy, and that was perfect. That was awesome.
I love it. I'm glad you remembered that because, yes, it is a scene that bears discussion. Ray, last time you were here, we talked about your favorite movie, Rumblefish, and we talked a lot about Coppola, and I'm trying to remember what you said about Megalopolis at the time. I think, like many of us, you were like, I don't know, but I'll be there. And I'm curious both what you ended up thinking about it and if you have any words for the bug nuts Aubrey Plaza performance as WoW Platinum.
Well, just because I had just last week re-listened to our episode of Rumblefish because I like to hear myself talk.
Sure.
I had said that I thought Megalopolis, because of the reviews I'd heard, the early reviews coming out of festival season, that it was going to maybe be a bit of a flop. But I'm curious as to what he has to say.
Yeah.
Because he's just one of those artors.
That seems like the right attitude. That's what happened.
That's exactly what happened. He said what he had to say, and we sat through it. There's a point where I thought maybe Aubrey Plaza was miscast.
Oh,
and
really?
then I'm watching it thinking, maybe everyone's miscast. And then I'm thinking, can you cast this film? You almost can't blame anyone. But is it there for blame, or is it just there as a piece of art that we'll appreciate over time?
That's fascinating. Maybe.
And I love Aubrey Plaza being in it just because Aubrey Plaza's arc is one of the more interesting arcs of an actor that I've seen of the group of actors that I've kind of grown up with. I mean,
Sure.
She might be a bit younger, but still she came up as being like, for me as a Gen Xer, what if Daria grew up, right?
Yeah.
That was her. And I love the way she was able to kind of not really fall into the ilk of so many young actresses, especially of her age, where there was no sex appeal. She never dressed for the part. She wasn't trying to ever be a side addendum to a man. She was almost in every situation where she was even with another man, they complimented her. I rarely ever saw a situation where she didn't totally own the characters that she played in movies, and she did it her own way. Like I said earlier, without utilizing the kind of sexuality most filmmakers almost pigeonhole young actors into doing early in their career. She was able to get away with doing it in a very different, almost more of a Winona Ryder kind of way early on, where she was kind of doing, I think, through her personality, in and of itself kind of gave her more of a macabre stereotype. But then you throw in the interviews that she does, which are just as entertaining as her films.
Totally.
And it's just her, but she's able to just kind of remain this very grounded, almost normal person. And then you see her in was it Legion? And then you see her in, oh my God, just a host of like White Lotus.
Yep.
And just the choices she keeps making and the films she keeps doing. It just is such a amazing growth from Daria to a movie star.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Because she does, our whole introduction to her was as this kind of like deadpan comedic character who had something crazy underneath. And then she would take the comedic beats of that and do something completely over the top. Like, so when she did get an opportunity in like her late 30s to play in WoW Platinum, just like a cartoonishly like sex crazed character when she's interviewing John Boyd, she's like, what's it like to be rich? It's just such over the top comedy wise. And yeah, recently you have seen, and I'm glad you brought up White Lotus, because somewhere between those things there is also like her ability to play a person in like very real pain. And I think you see that in the movie we're talking about today. So
Ingrid Goes West is another one that's kind of low key, where she starts to display some of these acting shots.
She's cracking. That character's cracking over the course of the movie. Ray, I wonder, since it's that time of year, could I bother you for your other favorite films of 2024? What else would you shout out?
Well, so glad you asked, because I haven't seen a lot of films for 2024. So I'm going to give you a list of the films that I'm looking to see in 2024, and you tell me if I'm on board with, or if I'm on track with any of these.
Okay.
Because I've got a lot of catching up to do. You're catching me. I'm doing an end of the year catch up here.
Sure.
So I still need to see Honora. Are we on that one?
I didn't like it as much as, say, the jury at the Cannes Film Festival, but definitely worth seeing.
Does anyone? All right, Thelma.
I thought Thelma was really funny.
Okay.
And June Squibb, everything June Squibb said made me laugh. The final performance from Richard Roundtree, he's terrific in it. Yeah, I would definitely check out Thelma.
Perfect. Okay. I saw the TV Glow. Why is everyone talking about this one?
I really dug that one. Why is everyone talking about it? There's kind of a mastery of the atmosphere of like being a lonely kid in the 90s and being in your basement and watching too much TV and then only being able to connect with someone because they also watched the same TV show. And like what happens to a character if they can't let go of that, with some like surrealist horror and some really interesting thoughts on identity. I dug it.
Okay. Now it has Justice. What's his name?
Justice Smith.
Thank you. He's an actor I bought a lot of stock in early too. Yeah. Oh, very good callback. Yeah, he's an actor I bought a lot of stock in also early on when he was in an a Netflix series, I think, called The Get Down, about the birth of hip hop coming out of Brooklyn.
I never saw that. He had a major role in it?
It was really good. He was the star of it, yeah, and he was really good. Okay, cool. Now my next film I have is Gasoline Rainbow. Where are we at with that one?
Oregon Made. I liked.
Right. I
really liked the Turners' previous movie, but I haven't seen Gasoline Rainbow.
Okay, and then we have Sing Sing.
Top of the list. I gotta get to it. I hear Coleman Domingo's amazing, but
yes. And then I'm going to put in an extra Rap World. Have you heard of this one?
I have heard of Rap World. I'm a big Conor O'Malley person. By the way, Conor O'Malley has a very funny part in I Saw the TV Glow. Can I watch Rap World right now? Is it streaming somewhere? Do you know?
I believe it is, because I think I got all these queued up. As of the time of somebody hearing this podcast, I'm going to say yes.
Oh, it's just on YouTube. It's free on YouTube, I think. Definitely.
I do have YouTube Premium, since now I just watch YouTube all the time now.
Oh man.
I know I'm one of those people.
I gotta get to it. I feel like I haven't. I want to get more comedies in the mix before the end of the year here, because we're gonna see lots of like award season stuff, but I want a few more funnies along the way.
So I guess until then, I'm just going to keep listening to your podcast and see what people got to say and find out what I need to watch next.
Nice. Did you see Furiosa?
I loved Furiosa, and I did not expect that. I held off seeing it for a while because I don't know. Well, first off, I don't think it got the kind of recognition and reviews that it should have, or the people that reviewed it didn't say what they should have said about it. I didn't know that it was that it really kind of, while doing its own thing, stay close enough to the lore to really be fun and play with it and create characters that I feel like we can keep doing this more and more now. I would love to, and what Chris Hemsworth did, incredible. I can't believe it worked, because it almost feels like what Jason Momoa tried to do in the last Fast and Furious a little bit, where he just tried to create this memorable bad guy character with all this whatever. But no, that guy was great.
That's a great, he really shines in that movie.
And then the big one of the year, I guess, was Deadpool and Wolverine. And I swear that just sounded like somebody's playlist going on while the movie was in the background. The needle drops were just incessant, right? And I can't call it lazy, because I'll never call Ryan Reynolds lazy. For one, I kind of respect him as a man. I think he's a pretty good actor. He takes pretty good roles. I kind of respect him as a person, and I definitely don't think he's lazy. I just think it's uncreative when every single beat has to be undertoned with a well-known pop song to provide the emotional beat for me, instead of letting the damn action and characters do it.
Yeah.
And it was every second they're hitting me with another one and another one and another one. It's like, geez.
It's lazy screenwriting.
But it did what it's supposed to do. Yeah, but it did what it's supposed to do.
Sure.
It's a good enough movie. All
right. Well, man, thank you so much for a great pick. I'm so happy I saw this. As of right now, I do think it will land in my top 10 of the year.
All right.
Yeah, man. And thanks for chopping it up. It was good to have you back.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. This is always great.